But a few years ago, I started going, I'll tell you more of my story, but a few years ago, I started going to Bible college. I've been doing ministry work as a layperson for a number of years before that, and God just kind of called on me to say, it's time to step it up. It's time to learn a little bit more, kind of deepen your understanding of me and how I want you to help other people. And so I started going to school at Liberty University for pastoral counseling, and I'm in my last 2 weeks. I mean, I've got less than 2 weeks now until I'm done. I'm so excited because it's been a hard trek. It's been difficult. I'm a very technical person. I'm a computer programmer by trade, and just the fit my computer's given me today is embarrassing, tell you. But I'm very technical, and going to seminary school is not technical at all. It's all about spirituality, understanding God and understanding His Word. And God doesn't work by formulas, and He doesn't have laws of nature and anything like that. He has His Word, and that's it. And it's not that He's given us this Word so we can hold Him accountable to it, per se. It's not that that's His laws that He has to live by. It's like that's His gift to us, telling us about Him and how He is, and how we just need to understand Him, and how we're to act and treat each other. And so when Pastor asked me to share this morning, I started thinking about maybe I should share my testimony, and I started thinking about that a little bit more. And the Holy Spirit kept whispering in my ear, who am I? Speaking to me, asking me to ask that question. Who am I? Who am I going to present? What am I going to tell you about? And really that just kind of struck through my head. It kept going over and over again. So that's what I want to talk to you guys about, like that question that we might ask ourselves from time to time. Who am I? When I look in the mirror, who do I see? Who's that person looking back, right? And in psychology today, I want to look this up because I always like to see what the secular world has to say about things like this. People who ask this sort of question are typically struggling with their identity and are searching for a core sense of themselves. The irony is that the more you seek to identify who you are, the more fragile you are likely to feel about yourself. And actually, that's actually good. I think that's a good statement. It's actually very true, right? When we start asking that, who am I? For the longest time, I didn't have the sense of who I was. And I started looking back and thinking back. What was that question? What was my answers to that question when I was a little kid? And when I was growing up, I was not cool. In fact, I would say that people looked at me as kind of a nerd, kind of weird, kind of strange. My family was really poor, so I didn't have the cool clothes that everybody else has. I didn't have the cool Converse, that other kids had when I was growing up. I didn't have jeans half the time. I mean, my mom got my clothes from Goodwill. She got them donated. She got them where she get them either cheap or free because she didn't have a lot of money. For whatever reason, growing up, I always thought I was stupid. I don't know why, and not that I didn't do good in school, but just that was the impression I got of myself. I felt clumsy all the time. I was not athletic at all. In fact, one of the, I think for a time I belonged to, I think it was the YMCA or something like that, and one of the coaches there used to call me a physical retard. I mean, that was like how non-athletic I was. Nice guy, of course. But that's where I was getting a sense of myself. Who am I? Clumsy, foolish. I just always said the wrong thing or went the wrong way, or playing baseball at gym or something like that, would try to steal a base when I didn't have a chance in my life to make it. And just always being foolish. Another nickname I had as a kid was Caveman. I think I had as much hair on my body then as I do now when I was like, less than 16. And that was one of my names that people gave me, was Caveman. And that was not very uplifting and moralizing, and didn't feel great about myself. And then finally, one of the things as a kid, I always felt like a loser. I just felt like there was nowhere for me to go. There was no success going to happen in my life. You know, and it's a funny thing. It's kind of like as you grow up and you go from being a kid to a teenager, you start looking differently, right? A little bit. You start, instead of like accepting what other people tell about you, you start trying to kind of like formulate for yourself who you are. And you want to try to start projecting it back, right? So as a teenager, I wanted to start to project myself as cool, you know, as a rock star. You know, I learned how to play guitar. I think for the only reason I learned to play was so I could be cool. So I could, you know, not be such a nerd, not such just, you know, a reject. And, but how others saw me, you know, and it depends on who you were. They saw a long-haired hippie or a druggie, because that was another place that I turned to. Because I wanted to, not only did I want to learn to play guitar to be a rock star, I wanted to take on that lifestyle as well. I wanted to get high and do drugs and drink and be rebellious and not do the things that I thought maybe I should do. I was just delusional about life, you know, and I put this down. I remember this instance when I was a kid, and I was always in new schools. My parents moved around all the time. And after my mom split up from my dad, we moved still all the time. And I was in this new school, and we were just back from summer vacation. And the question, you know, was like, you know, who are you? That was the question. And I made up all this stuff. None of it was true. And I made this stuff to make myself sound cool, like a rock star. But I wasn't. You know, I was just another kid in school, just moved into town. You know, and through those years, I just, you know, I went to church as a kid, and I was just disconnected from that. And my mom she gave up that battle trying to drag us kids to church. And she was working on her own anyway. She didn't have time to do all that. And, you know, it just didn't work. The whole, you know, everything good in my life that was attached to it as a younger man, as a younger boy, started getting tore away. And I had less of this good influence in my life, less of this positive influence. And then when I became a young man, you know, I was so used to quitting, so used to giving up, so full of this distorted image of myself, so far away from what God's image that He has for us, that I ended up quitting school. I never finished high school at that time. You know, and I felt that way too. I felt like a quitter. I quit everything. I couldn't hold on to jobs for any length of time. I got to the point where I was unemployable. I was doing so much drugs and so much alcohol that I was just undependable. I couldn't be counted on to be anywhere. I couldn't be counted on to be at work. And that was a huge thing for me. I had instilled in me from my mom like this really great work ethic. It was important for me that, you know, you go to work every day. You be there no matter what, no matter how sick you are, whether it's to the flu or from a self-imposed sickness, right? You know, I just got to be there. And, you know, I was got to the point where I couldn't be counted on. And like I said, I was addicted. And I was addicted. I was the kind of person that if I went out somewhere and drank, I would drink as much as I could. And the only thing that would stop me was running out of money, closing time, or silver bracelets, you know, the pair of silver bracelets. Those were the things that would stop me, you know. It wasn't like I would just say, well, that's been enough for me. You know, leave a half a beer there and walk away. That never happened, you know. And I do the same thing, you know, and I didn't care if it was some kind of drug or something like that. I would do as much as I could. You know, I would do more than everybody else if I could. I would just do it to the max because I just wanted to depart from the way I felt about myself and everything around me as much as I could. I wanted to numb those feelings. I wanted to get away from them. And it was who I was, right? That's who I was. And again, all these things going on, and I still felt like a loser. You know, I still felt that something's wrong. There's something wrong with me. And in fact, that got worse and worse and worse as I went along, and it just got crazier, right? And it got to the point where I think God said enough. You know, I need to start bringing you back. And my trip back away from this life of insanity was a lot different than a lot of other people that I know, as far as those that were saved through spiritual matters, through Christ. And I've got this verse here I want to share. Come on, phone, help me out. Okay. And then Jesus answered them, right? I assure you, most solemnly, I tell you, whoever commits and practices sin is a slave to that sin. John 8:34. You know, and that's what I had become. I had become a slave to what I thought I was. A drug addict, you know, just that lifestyle. I was consumed by it. And that was all those aspirations of being a great guitar player, all those aspirations of maybe doing this or doing that or going to school or whatever, all those were gone. And the only thing that I really could focus on anymore was getting high and staying high. That's all I really cared about. But something, like I said, something happened. God started drawing me in. And a friend of mine really explained it well, because he kind of came to Christ pretty much the same path I did, even the timeline and everything. And God kind of reaches out for some of us like this, and with really wide open arms, and just kind of starts pulling us up in with his fingertips. And for me, what happened was I was drawn into a 12-step recovery group, and where there was a very vague, understanding of God, and it wasn't super clear. No one was saying you have to follow the Bible, and none of that. There wasn't any of that. And God was like so anonymous in this process that it kind of worked for me, because I was at that point certain that God was just so tired of me, so sick of me, that he couldn't help me. He wouldn't help me. You know, that he loved other people and he would help other people, but not me, because I had been too bad, too much overboard. And but then my definition of who I was started changing a little bit. You know, I started looking at myself as a recovering addict instead of being an addict. You know, I was somebody that started, you know, I went a week, and then 2 weeks, and months, and months, and months. You know, and it's been over 25 years now that God's kept me from this stuff. You know, some other things happened, you know. Before that, I'd gone back and gotten my GED, but then I started doing things like going to college and graduating a few times. The kids that I had in my life that were gone, because like I said, when I got near the end of it, everything was gone from my life. And those kids that, you know, that I was a father of, they started coming back. You know, and who I was became a father. You know, I was a father again. And I started becoming employable again. I started showing up to work when I was supposed to. I started staying there and working until the time I was supposed to leave. You know, that started changing in my life. You know, and God was working in my life, like I said, but it was in a very anonymous way, a very slow way, but there was still something missing. And I still felt like a loser inside. And there was a point where I had like 10 years. I was clean for 10 years. And if you had asked me in the beginning of it if I'd ever would have made it for 10 years, I would have told you, no way. No way. You know, as bad as I was, there's no way I would have come back and been able to do that. But I did. And I get on a roll and I don't want to stop to take a drink. You know, I had gotten so far, and after 10 years, I was, you know, by most standards, that's doing great. But I felt like there's still something missing. And there was this one point, and it was this one stupid incident in my life, right? And I had this older car, and I was out running errands, and the battery died in it. And my brain was still, in a lot of ways, just as messed up as it was when I first started getting clean. I just wasn't putting chemicals in my body anymore. And I started thinking, ahead, and oh no, here I am, a single father, I got my kids to take care of, my battery's dead in my car's dead, I can't go nowhere, I can't go to work, I'm going to lose my job, and then the state's going to take my kids away, and in a matter of moments, my mind has raced so far ahead that I just put myself in this huge mess. And I looked across the street and there's an Ace Auto Parts, and went over there and bought a battery, put in the car, and drove home. And this is so typical of me and my life and the panic modes and all this craziness that would happen. And but there was something even more important that happened at that time. I got really sick. And you might say, from looking from the outside of this thing, as sick as I got, that this was horrible. But this is probably the most pivotal thing that happened to me in my life. I got so sick, I weighed 108. Do you ever see pictures from that, honey? Yeah, I weighed like 170 pounds. Everywhere I went, I had to drag an oxygen tank behind me because I was on oxygen, because my lungs were so messed up, I couldn't pull in enough oxygen. And basically, the doctors knew I was going to die, and there was nothing they could do for me. They were certain of it. And a lot of things happened in this process. This went on, this was a few years that this went on for. And, at first I was like, I think I was in denial of it. And then later on, I got angry about it. I got upset, and I was like, I've been through all this stuff, I've been clean all this time, and God, what is this? Like you're still mad at me or something. And what am I going to do with myself? I couldn't even work at that point. All I could do is drive people around. And a priest, my mom's priest of the church she belongs to, came and visited me, and we talked. And he says, you know what, I can't promise you anything. This might kill you. This disease might kill you. He says, but God can use you in this time. That you can still do things for Him. That you still can help other people just by how you go through this. And his words were really encouraging for me, because at that point in my life, I had learned the value of helping other people, and that had become very important to me. If I who I was, was really tied to how I can help other people. And I did that. I drove people around. I could drive my car. That was about it. And I would drive people places, and I would talk to them, and I would help them, and I would counsel them, right? And I did this, and and it gave me some hope. It gave me some purpose. It gave me a little bit of life in the life that I had left. Then there was also this other aspect of this illness, is I would go into these horrible fits of just being completely cold, right to my bone. I mean, I was so cold, I would get the chills so bad that I would have to stand. I would stand in my shower with that hot water full blast, no cold water at all. My sides would be red from just the heat, but it still wouldn't warm me up enough, and I would just be freezing. And one night I lay in my bed, and I was having one of these cold fits, and I was tired and just weak in my body, and I really didn't feel like getting up and doing anything. Just kind of was like laying there suffering, couldn't go to sleep, nothing would happen. And I remembered the story I heard when I was a kid about this woman that followed Jesus around and got it in her head. She just knew that if she just touched his garment, that she would be healed. But I knew I was really cold. So I asked Jesus, and this was the first time in my life that I ever prayed to Jesus. I prayed to God plenty of times, but never to Jesus. But this time I prayed to Jesus, and I asked him, please wrap me in that cloak, because I was cold, and that would keep me warm. And I'll tell you what happened, is that, I felt, I don't know how to say it, but just by saying it, I felt this supernatural cloak go around me, and my body got warmed, and I fell into a sleep, and I